All right. Testing the sound. All right. Testing. All right. I see the sound. Awesome. Welcome, goddesses, to day 2 of the Wild Woman Challenge. As some of you know, I am a divine feminine mentor. I guide women into their potential as embodied leaders through awakened sexuality, empowered relationship dynamics, and manifesting, which I prefer calling wombifesting, right? Because it's really coming from spirit and being birthed through our wombs. Very cool. My passion is really guiding others to connect deeply with their spirit and their inner knowing, their yes, this deep trust. And this ripples out into all aspects of life, your career, your health, your relationships, so that you have a really new perspective and way of being. And I'm here to support women planting seeds in the spirit world and then watching them manifest and grow in the 3D reality. I believe that this is the time for the divine feminine to rise. And I see it happening. And as women come together and collaborate and co-create, the manifestations increase and speed up, which is so great. So this is why I have the Goddess Book Club and the Divine Feminine Initiation Coaching Certification, to amplify all of our desires and the things that we feel called and led to by source. So my method is a fusion of dynamic coaching, energy work, channeling, wisdom practices, divine guidance, rituals, and embracing sexuality, really getting into this womb wisdom and the pleasure and the desire. This is why we're here. This is this aliveness, the zest for life. So I'm a way shower or light worker, a medicine woman, a guide for ascension. And I love being part of the divine feminine rising, and it is challenging sometimes. So if you want to talk to me about any of that, I'm here. All right. So today is about the Wild Woman Challenge. Today's theme is to know. And this is a very tricky thing in society. So I would love when you get here live, you can put an emoji in the chat. I'm going to move my window. I apologize. Yesterday, I think I had a window in front of the chat. So I'm just going to make sure that that's not what is happening today. I can see the chat. Beautiful. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So when you get here, just do an emoji. You can say hi, Neve, or give me a heart or something. That's great. And then if you're watching this later, do a hashtag replay and just let me know what landed for you, what resonated, what spoke to you. So today is about knowing, and this is the gift of being a woman, is when you get into your spiritual, psychic womanliness, it's this deep knowing. So I was in the ER on Sunday, and I was purging, right? I was puking all day because I got too hot and didn't have enough water, right? So I ended up in the ER, and I'm puking, a couple times an hour, over and over, right? Really. And in it, trying not to hold the toilet, but, being right there and staring down into this bowl. And there were several different toilets I got to know on Sunday. There was a deep knowing that I was purging. I was purging for myself, purging patterns, purging identities, purging beliefs. There's also this deep knowing that I might be purging, or it felt like maybe I'm not just purging for myself as well. And that's, part of being a medicine woman and on this path is sometimes you're doing this deep work for the planet and for others as well as yourself, which can be very interesting. So there was that deep knowing. And then I had another purge of tears and crying like the next day, and so much grief. And this was then like a second wave of a different flavor of purging, and this crying and this deep, like, I'm just going to allow myself to be in it, because I don't know if it's all for me or for others. Like, sometimes when I am in those moments, what has been revealed to us is that we are mourning and grieving and purging so many different things from different timelines, or ancestral even things that we're releasing. So how do you get to that type of knowing? So I love for you to put in the chat, how do you know what is in alignment for your life? I would love to know. I know I'll put it in the chat now. How do you know what is in alignment for you? How do you know? We get a lot of messages from media, from society, from our culture, about things that, maybe we should want or have or do or be. But how do you know? And what is a way to really know? I find it very fascinating. And I used to have this pattern where I had to call someone else to figure out what I knew. And you might be in this space because it's a pretty normal thing for women. And sometimes we really do need to talk to another sister or priestess or friend, goddess, about what's going on. And what I found is a lot of time we don't. The answer is within, and we know. We can know. But it is interesting to watch and witness yourself. And I would love to hear in the chat, like, yes, Neve, I've had that pattern, or I still have that pattern where it's like, I have to go outside of myself to find the answers. I need to search on the internet for the answers. I need to, do a little inventory with all my friends and see what the average answer is. Or, man, this is not how we end up living our most untamed, wild existence. And so I'm curious, and I'll put this in the chat too, what practices do you do daily, weekly, monthly, yearly to connect to your inner knowing? Oh, let me add that. Connect to your inner knowing. I would love to hear. I'll share some of the things I do. But I am really looking forward to reading the comments, watching the replay, and seeing what you share about these practices. It says hat practices, but it means what practices. So we're in this portal vortex of the solstice. If you're in the Western Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere, if you're in America, and it's the winter solstice if you're, on the other side of the world, and Southern Hemisphere, not Northern Hemisphere. But it's an auspicious day. It's an auspicious time. It's a portal. And so it's, full moon, new moon, the solstices, the equinoxes. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but it's like, these are openings for psychic intuitive messages and energy. This is a day to sit quietly and see what comes to you, and what do you know? What will be revealed to you? I think that it's very much changed my life to start to honor these ancient days of seasonal shifts, or lunar shifts. So I'd love to hear in the chat. I'll share some. So one practice, and I want to know, because it's really hard with all these other messages coming at us, like how do we know what our inner voice is? And I think even as a leader, as a coach, as an entrepreneur, if you're in that realm of leadership, it's easy to look at like other coaches or other doctors or other practitioners, other healers, and be like, oh, I need to be doing that, or I need to be doing more of that, or I like what she's doing and that works. And everything doesn't really click for us until we're going in and doing what we know to be true. That's when things click. That's when magic starts to happen. So what practices do I do yearly? We'll start big and go small. So yearly, I have the honoring and the ceremonies around the 2 equinoxes and the solstice. I specifically go into some type of ceremony on these days to connect to my inner knowing. I go on trips and I take space. I take space away from all of my relationships at different times. That's one of the ways that I know. And so if you're just joining, hi, welcome. You can give me an emoji or say hi in the chat. And then I would love to know, what are the practices that you do daily, weekly, monthly, yearly that allow you to tap into your inner knowing and your intuition and to nurture that connection? So I'm sharing some of mine. So one is that space, which is kind of feels like the opposite of when we are reaching out to people and we have this energy and we're connecting things with people, and it's kind of like there's more coming in. Whereas I find that space, less coming in and actually like leaving my environment brings me to my knowing. So that's a tip, a gem for this live. Monthly would be the womb wisdom is the cycle. Really starting to align with the moon and with your womb. All I know is that if you need help with that, I can help you. I also have my Moondala. You can put that in the chat. The booklet, the moon booklet, and that can help you. It has changed my life. The amount of intuitive knowing that has increased since I've embraced my own womb wisdom and my cycle is amazing. Even just the dream messages when I'm bleeding, it's like, whoa, there's some potent energy. And you don't really get those if you're high or if you're getting drunk a lot still. They kind of get cloudy, or it can be hard to have dream recall. Now everyone's different. But I know for my experience, sobriety is the best for intuitive knowing, for really connecting, right? And we talked about yesterday, really feeling all the feels is important too. Okay, so for weekly, I make sure that I do my dance medicine, that I go to my dances. At least one of them, if not both. I might go to more if there's more in the future. But I make sure weekly I attend. I used to be a yoga class. In this season, at this time, it's a conscious dance, which I use movement as meditation. So finding what a touch point weekly, a touch point monthly or bi-weekly, touch points yearly. And then daily, I meditate daily and dance every day. And that allows me to connect. I usually, not always, dance and then sit. And just allow the knowing And different sisters will come into my awareness to reach out to that day. Sometimes what I should eat or something I should do, or something to consume will come in. I mean, really interesting. When we have these, so this is just like this daily check-in of knowing is really, like it says in Psalms, be still and know that I am God, right? And I have that meditation as well. I can drop that in the chat real quick for you, because I'm going to do it in the Goddess Book Club next week anyway. So, and then the Moon Dala, I'll look for that moon booklet and share that as well. Let's see here. Bring that up really quickly. So what about when there's a huge thing, like a huge decision that you have to make? How do you know? I think turning to meditation is great, but it's really be still, be quiet, get quiet, not listening or calling people or having things come in, right? Is being still and listening. And that's how you know. And when you're still and be still and know that I'm God. Be still and know that I'm God. Right? This is the meditation. It's a chant and then silence. It brings you to deep trust and deep faith. So in the Divine Feminine initiation, we talk a lot about full body yes, and that your voice is 10,000 times louder than all of the voices outside of you. And that's a huge part that we nurture throughout the whole shamanic journey, is that you're this wild woman challenge, exactly, to feel all the feels and to go within to know, to the part of you that is divine, to your higher self, to the oversoul that knows the lessons and the things that you're here to travel and do in this life. So it's really a beautiful gift to get still and quiet. And there's a lot of things, including, the food we eat, the media we consume. Everything is pulling us out of our bodies into our minds and then giving us messages. And then it gets swirly, and then we get anxiety and depression and all kinds of things, right? So we stop that whole cycle by turning everything off and going inward. In Glennon Doyle's book, which the goddesses are going through right now, I told you this yesterday, I mentioned this inspired this challenge. I believe this is the chapter where she would just go in her closet and shut the door and listen, right? To really know what her voice was saying. So she says in this chapter, I'll read it to you: how to know. Moment of uncertainty arises. Breathe, turn inward, sink. Feel around for the knowing. Do the next thing it nudges you toward. Let it stand. Don't explain. Repeat forever. For the rest of your life, continue to shorten the gap between the knowing and the doing. And I'll take a picture of that and share it as well. But I like, my favorite word in this whole thing that she has is sink. Because it's like we're in our mind layer. And if we can sink down into our heart, then we're probably waking up. Then we're probably going from 3D to 4D or 4 maybe to 5D, right? And the dimensions, we just use those for the mind layer. There's really like infinite amount of dimensions simultaneously all the time, but you get the idea, right? And then from the mind to the heart, we move to the womb. And that's where the divine feminine is initiated, right? That is where the inner knowing becomes easeful. That's where when you're puking in the hospital for 8 hours, whatever, that you're purging things that are not, it's not just a physical experience, right? When we talk about this a lot on our coaching calls, but when something happens in life, what is the spiritual thing? Like if you break your arm, or if you get dizzy, or if you get sick, what is it? What is the actual message from your body and from your soul, from your spirit? Like what is actually happening, or what are you supposed to get? Because if you don't get that message, you get the next, version of the harder way to get the lesson, right? And like there was definitely a lesson for me in the purging that did not integrate enough. Thus, I had to go through this purging. So I got the lesson now. I don't want to purge anymore. And that's beautiful. I think it's a brag. I'm excited that I had to purge so deeply. Because it reminded me also of this knowing, this deep knowing. So if this is something that interests you, the divine feminine initiation, it's a shamanic, essentially year-long journey through the elements, through all of the things. It's really amplifying your relationships, your relationship with yourself, and then your relationship with everyone else, healing all of this patriarchal wounds, all the BS from our culture. A lot of these are ingrained in us. And so we kind of have to dig a little bit. And that's part of this journey, is being held in this loving space with goddesses and doing all the digging to unearth a magical life where you're manifesting your dreams. So I love helping women release outdated patterns and stories so they can rise as a priestess. I really feel like this is a huge remembering. I definitely was a priestess in a past life. So helping other women rise into their self-worth and intuition and psychic abilities is amazing. I feel so honored, and I love guiding women to fully honor and love their sexual nature, because it raises your frequency and amplifies your vitality, your zest, and it totally increases your manifesting when you're in tune with your sexuality. It's like, whoa, that just happened. Whoa, I wanted that. That just happened. I mean, I had this conversation with the goddess today. It was like, I want this thing. Oh, it showed up in the grass the next day. Like, I'm telling you, amazing stuff happens when we embrace our sexuality. And then I love it if you wanted to join me and discover the hidden powers of your womb, this womb wisdom. We can heal heartbreak. We can heal the past wounds, trauma, sexual blocks. And as you start to embrace this cyclical living, which is this ancient feminine wisdom, it creates this mystic, erotic life that is so full and rich. So if any of that sounds like an alignment for you, and along with your desires and how you're feeling called in this next phase and step of your journey, I would love to have a conversation with you and see if it resonates for us. So you can click the link on this video, and that's to set up a call with me. And I am going to wish you a beautiful, beautiful summer solstice day. I encourage you, the challenge today is to get still, to be quiet, and to allow your intuitive knowing to rise to the surface. So I'd love to hear if you do that. Please let us know. You can post about it. And let me just put the moon booklet in here for you. Here we go. Where's the chat? There it is. The challenge really is to get quiet. You could meditate and just let that knowing come, but also if you did the meditation I shared, be still and know that I am God, that would also totally count for day 2's challenge. Okay, I love you so much. Blessings. bye for now, and I'll see you tomorrow for our last day of the challenge. And I'd love to see you live. We can comment and go back and forth and have a conversation before I go on this adventure to California.